Welcome to the A and B podcast, where two regular dudes discuss various topics in films, gaming, and TV. Now, usually you'd hear Alex, my co host, however, he's decided to take a side role, and you'll see him further down the line in future episodes. But otherwise, I'm myself, I'm Birkin, and today I'm joined by my new co host, the great Oggy.
What's up?
Welcome, Oggy, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Awesome. So, shall we discuss the first topics?
Sure.
So, the first topic we have today is in regards to the Batmobile. So, recently, a picture leaked of the Batmobile for Matt Reeves' The Batman, which stars Robert Pattinson. Now, originally, before this, there was an edited version of this picture, but then we leaked another picture of the car, which looks a little bit more realistic, sort of thing, like a concept car. Now, did you see the Soggy?
Yes, I did. Unfortunately.
I see it. So, I presume you don't have great impressions of this.
Well, the image that I've seen of this car, or at least the realistic version of it, it doesn't look appealing. I mean, this is always what happens with movies. They always reveal edited versions and they look amazing, but when you see the non-edited versions, they always look ridiculous because we have no idea what the context is of this. Apparently, the movie's going to be like this, like 60s era noir sort of style detective movie. So it's going to have a certain vibe, and we have no idea what that's going to look like because nothing's been released apart from the bat suit, Robert Pattinson in the bat suit, and this car. Now, this realistic picture just doesn't fit that narrative because it's not edited to fit the style of the film, which is why it just looks so ridiculous to me. How about yourself?
No, I mean, I do agree. Like, obviously, I'm excited to see what it'll look like in the film instead. But this picture in itself doesn't fill me with much confidence. And obviously, from what we've seen of the suit, that also gives me more Daredevil vibes. Now, I understand this is his first year as the Batman. And like I said to you earlier, that I reckon the film will end with him getting a new Batmobile anyway. But like, let's be honest, if you were a thug and you saw this car on the street, I wouldn't really feel threatened. I just feel like it's like Vin Diesel from Fast and Furious or something.
Or maybe that's the giant twist. This is actually a Fast and Furious spin-off.
Or after Hobbs and Shaw.
Fast and Furious back to Gotham.
Oh god, here we go. But no, like you say, it'll be very interesting to see where they go down because, like you say, it looks like it's gonna be having that noir style first year detective, which could be fun and interesting, but at the same time, it's like there needs a bit more to it because it just looks very cheap.
Well, we don't know. That's the thing. This is still early days. We haven't seen anything beyond these early concept pictures. I imagine when the film comes out and we see the final product, our opinions of this will be completely different because we'll see it in the nature it's supposed to be in. I mean, everyone had the same problem with Ben Affleck and his suit when it first came out. Everyone thought it looked ridiculous, but then when you watch the movie, it's like, oh, okay, it matches everything else, so it's not as ridiculous as we originally thought.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a good point. To be fair, yeah, like it was the same with Heath Ledger, wasn't it? When people weren't keen on him being the Joker,
Oh
and
God, they
then
were wrong.
how they were wrong, how they were wrong. Actually, quickly digressing from the Batmobile to Ben Affleck's Batman. What are your thoughts on the Schneider cut?
The Schneider Cut. I'm very interested to see it. I've
Hmm.
heard a lot of good things about it, and a lot of people have been demanding it. So, yeah, I don't have anything else apart from I would like to see it.
Do you think the movie will be any better?
Pardon?
Do you think the Justice League film will be any better?
Oh, that's a tough question. The thing is, the Justice movie had a lot of faults, which it's unfair to blame it solely on the filmmaking process. There were a lot of factors behind it. So, if we see what the original intention was behind all these decisions, which will quickly change, then perhaps it would give greater context.
Hmm.
Who
No,
knows?
that's totally fair.
Maybe the version that we got was the better one of the two. That would really disappoint people even further, or maybe make the first one even better looking than they originally seen. But the thing is, it all depends on what this Snyder Cut's going to look like. So I'm curious to see what it is because it reveals a lot. It's illuminating.
The most interesting thing about it is that if it is a success, what does Warner Brother do now?
That's the
um,
point.
like because they've completely like reset certain franchises, but at the same time, if they do this and if it's a one-time event, then fair enough. But if they see, oh, we can make money from this and whatnot, then what are they going to do? Are they going to try and plan an Infinite Crisis? Is that what they're sort of going for?
Only if it fits the narrative they've already established. They can't just change everything purely because of money. Otherwise, it will break the whole point. The whole point of Infinite Crisis was that it was shocking because it matched the story that led up to it.
Very good point. Very good point. Now, in regards to TV news, we don't really have anything like that. It's been very quiet recently. So I presume we'll just move on to the gaming news.
Sure.
Alrighty. So, in gaming news, the first thing that we want to discuss is that Warner Brothers Interactive is reportedly on sale for $4 billion. This includes Warner Brothers Montreal, NetherRealms, the developers of Mortal Kombat, and Rocksteady, who were behind the Arkham series, apart from Arkham Origins, of course. It also includes the developers behind Shadow of Mordor. Now, this to me came as a real big shock, considering that Warner Brothers are actually quite decent when it comes to the video game market, and for them to put their studios on sale is a big shock. But it also adds with the fact that we've not seen anything from the likes of Rocksteady for almost 4 years now. Now, how did this surprise you, or if it did anyway?
It did surprise me because, as you said, Warner Brothers have a very good track record for video games. I mean, the Arkham Knights is a fantastic Arkham Knights. Excuse me. The Arkham games are fantastic. Mortal Kombat's a clearly successful series since they've released 11 plus installments. Correct me. Have they released more than 11? I've lost track.
In the Arkham series, or
No, no. The Mortal Kombat series.
it's 11 now, yeah.
11. So they've made 11 games. They've even gone as far as creating the Injustice games, Injustice 1 and 2. They're very, very popular games. They're not commercial failures. They're very good, which is a massive surprise considering they're now selling these companies to me. I don't understand the logic behind it.
No, I mean, you've got a good point. Like, the games themselves are very successful as well. Now, obviously, with the purchase and everything of the studios, you won't be getting the likes of, the rights to Batman or the rights to Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, because they're still owned by Warner Brothers Studios, not the gaming companies. But I'm sure you could come up with some sort of licensing agreement like the one EA has with Disney for Star Wars.
And that's
But
the same with Sony, I imagine, with Marvel.
yeah, exactly. So what I was saying is that obviously with the Warner Brothers studios being on sale for $4 billion, which is very expensive, and moving on to the next generation console life, which in itself is, surprising. And they've dropped this massive bomb on everybody. Apparently, the three reported companies interested in purchasing the studios are EA, Activision, and 2K. Now, personally, that worries me, but I wondered what you were thinking in regards to this.
Um, it is kind of worrisome because EA has no disrespect to them. They have a very scandalous sort of track record when it comes to video games.
Hmm.
The best thing to come to mind, obviously, is the Battlefront series. They've upped their game with Fallen Order. I'll give them that, but that was obviously the last thing they wanted to make when you consider what they were making beforehand with the Battlefronts loot boxes or the loot crates, whatever the hell you want to call them. So if they want to claim these companies and it'll expand obviously their budget and want to make more and more of these different sort of IPs, which isn't exactly a good thing. Activision, same sort of boat. It's not to the extent that EA have done, but like it's a similar situation, unfortunately. So
Hmm.
I'm just surprised that Warner Brothers is making this move. This is clearly a move from higher up. They're trying to step away from the video game industry, and it might just be a change in preference.
No, I mean that's a good point. Like you say, it's a move from the higher ups, and maybe they're just not interested in video games in general, which is quite surprising because it's a massive market to be in.
Well, I
But
mean, this reminds me of a video I saw not so long ago by this guy. Oh, what was his name? His name was Sideways. He's on YouTube. I recommend watching his videos. It's fantastic. Um, Disney had a similar situation with the Disney Renaissance regarding Tarzan. If you look at all the Disney Renaissance movies and compare it to Tarzan, Tarzan technically, while it being in the Renaissance, isn't exactly a Renaissance movie because it's not a musical. It has musical elements, but not the same as the others. That's because at the time that Tarzan was being developed and released, the management for Disney changed, and with it, the preference for the format of the movies changed with it, where musicals were on the outs because they didn't seem to, as the guy put it, fit what was realistic. He couldn't understand why a wild man in the jungle would sing a ballad randomly when he has no experience in music. But on the flip side, if you look at everything else, nothing else makes sense. Like sea creatures in Little Mermaid singing, or gargoyles singing in Notre Dame. Like none of that makes sense, but still, he did that because it didn't make sense to him for there to be musical in Tarzan, and from that point onwards, almost every movie following that, with the exception of the newest ones, of course, were no longer musicals. Hence the end of the Disney era. I think Warner Brothers is having a similar experience where someone in the higher up has had an opinion or a change in preference, or maybe there was someone new installed who has a new vision, and they want to change Warner Brothers' sort of direction where they want to go. So unfortunately, that's the case. They had a fantastic foothold in the gaming industry, but now they've changed their attention to something else. Now we just have to wait to see what it is.
Mm-hmm. No, you are right. Like you say, the influence comes from higher up, and if it's just a company marketing in general, or the company's ethos has completely changed from the gaming industry. But at the same time, like you say, EA is a bit risky because obviously they've done well with Star Wars and everything to an extent, but at the same time, you don't really want EA to have more like decent IPs, especially if they get the licenses to Potter, to Batman, anything like that. And it's sort of the same with Activision and 2K as well. Like obviously 2K publish games by Rockstar, but that's a completely different thing. But my question is that right now, if you're Microsoft or Sony, why wouldn't you make a move for these companies? Like you don't have to pay 6 billion for the entire lot, but your likes of Rocksteady, your likes of Warner Brothers Interactive, Warner Brothers Montreal, or NetherRealms, they've got some great like business workings within them. Like the people working there, they can do decent stuff. And regardless of licensing, why wouldn't you make a move for these studios, especially Microsoft? So I was wondering, like, do you agree if you were Sony or Microsoft, would you make a move?
It depends again on the direction they want to take. I don't know exactly what Microsoft's vision is for the future of their games that they're going to place on their newest platform, but from what we've seen on the PlayStation 5 live stream, they're very clearly moving away from large mainstream franchises and more towards indie games, which is a refreshing change of pace. So it could be the case that that's the direction that Sony wants to take the newest platform, where they're focusing less on these massive blockbusters and more on these smaller projects that are very niche and very unique in their concept or their genre. If that's the case, I wouldn't be surprised if Sony decided not to buy these companies and use them for these massive blockbusters. On the flip side, you could argue that Sony could get these studios, but then choose to use these studios to make indie games.
Mm.
After all, if they own the studios, they can obviously own and decide or delegate what projects want to be made. Maybe they decide, you know what, we want these studios, but we don't want you to make any more of the IPs that you're currently making. We want you to focus on these other projects which are different from what you're experiencing, which would
Mm-hmm.
obviously be a bizarre move. But that's
That would be a very bizarre move.
that's how I can see Sony playing this. I couldn't say the same for Microsoft. I don't know enough about Microsoft and what they're putting on their platform. Where do you think? What would you think they would do?
I think from the fact that this generation is mainly going to be decided on exclusivity, and because both products are very similar in general from what they're looking like. But like you say, if I was Sony, I think you've got some 3 or 4 great studios in this bundle. I don't know why you wouldn't make a move, especially when like if you can get the licenses to Batman or other Warner Brothers properties, you've got a big heavy hitter there. Like imagine being able to market that you've got a AAA Spider-Man game and a AAA Batman game. Like that in itself is a fantastic package, and it already adds to Sony's lineup of studios. And going by what Jim Ryan previously said I think it was last year, that Sony were looking to buy new studios to purchase for their first party. However, on the flip side with Microsoft, they don't really have a standout name in regards to first parties, and I know that they're looking to buy. Plus, they have more money than Sony does. And obviously, recently Sony purchased Insomniac for around $250 million. So,
which
do they have
explains,
more money?
which explains Ratchet and Clank's appearance in
Yeah,
this.
exactly.
Yeah.
But we'll definitely get to that, of course. But no, like if I was Microsoft, I would knock on that door and be like, "How much do you want?" Because like they need another big studio within their first party Xbox studios, because obviously they have 343. They've got the Coalition, who make the Gears, who made the recently Gear games and stuff, but they don't have enough big party studios, if that makes sense. Like for AAA, because obviously Sony has Naughty Dog, they have Insomniac, they have Sucker Punch. Microsoft doesn't really have that. They don't really have, apart from the new one, which is Ninja Theory, who do Hellblade. They don't really have that single player driving force. And I think if you manage to get Rocksteady, and imagine getting Batman as a license, would be entering Spider-Man v Batman in the console war, which in itself would be quite good fun.
That'd be a hell of a crossover.
Imagine Xbox with Batman and Spider-Man with Sony.
I don't like that though, because I like Batman.
So do I. I really wouldn't like that. I mean,
well.
not saying that I'm not buying an Xbox. I'm just saying I've preferred PlayStation usually due to their exclusives. And if Microsoft did do that, that's a hell of a catch.
That's a massive, massive thing that
Massive.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree 100%.
100% agree.
I agree with that analysis.
Fantastic. Speaking of consoles and various games, here's another one at the PlayStation event, my good friend. Some news was dropped, which was that Grand Theft Auto 5, yes, that's right, Rockstar teased us with their logo, and it was revealed to be Grand Theft Auto 5, is coming to PlayStation 5 and to Xbox Series X. Now, this is the first time a video game has come to 3 different generations since its first release on the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, almost, I want to say, 8 years ago. How did you feel about seeing the brilliant Grand Theft Auto 5?
I'm at a loss for words because, as you said, they teased the Rockstar logo, and I thought, oh my god, Grand Theft Auto 6, like every other fan. But no, Grand Theft Auto 5 Online. It's annoying. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not even a fan of the Grand Theft Auto series. I've not even finished playing Grand Theft Auto 5, and yet I'm annoyed at the fact that they did this again for a third platform.
I mean, no, yeah, like you say, it was quite a big troll. I don't know who at Sony thought this was a good way to start a conference. It really wasn't, let's be honest. Like, you could have saved it for, like, somewhere in the middle, because this isn't really a big thing. Like, obviously, yes, it generates money and everything like that, but if you're going to drop a Rockstar logo, everybody else thought, oh my god, we're getting Grand Theft Auto 6. But no.
I can understand the logic of putting it first in that before they started showing all the previews for the games, they had a montage of all the biggest titles from PlayStation 4. And it could have been a case of this is the game to bridge the two consoles. Okay, this is a game that you've experienced before, twice over on 2 different platforms before, but still, it's something that we're reintroducing for the PS5 platform, and then now we're introducing the new stuff. I can understand that perspective, but still, it wasn't a great move in terms of trying to sell people on what this console could do, because I could personally tell maybe it was because my screen wasn't showing it very well, or I couldn't really notice it personally, but there wasn't anything different graphically speaking.
No, they didn't show anything in regards to the graphics of the PlayStation 5. They just showed PS4 footage.
And that's the problem really, because those who've played the Grand Theft Auto series, specifically 5 and online, if they see this, they're like, yes, we can continue playing this. This is great if you enjoy playing it. But if you have been playing this non-stop, like the entire Grand Theft Auto series, seeing this release, it could be quite repetitive, and that obviously puts off players who are already fans of the series. On the flip side, you could say those who have obviously never played the series could be like, okay, now I can actually enjoy this on this new platform. I don't have to go and get myself a PS4 or a PS3. I mean, that's one flip side of this, but yeah.
And my thinking is on that is who hasn't played this game now who wants to play it.
A good point.
Like,
Very good point.
let's be honest, it's been out for ages now, and like obviously the positive is that if you buy a PlayStation 5, you get this game for free. But how does that interlink with if you already own the game? Because obviously the games will still be backwards compatible, right? So why is it such a big deal that, for example, someone like me who already owns GTA 4 twice because I bought it on GTA 4, GTA 5 twice because I already bought it on the PS3 and then upgraded to PS4. That's not a big deal to me getting it for free because, like, I would expect my PS5 to play that because it's backwards compatible. Obviously, we don't know 100% if it is or not, but you'd expect that at least GTA 5 is backwards compatible, right? So that's why I was kind of like, okay, well, why does it matter if it's free if I already own the game anyway?
On that note, I'm really hoping that the PS5 has not just backwards compatibility for discs and games, but also a transference of digital library. Because last thing I want to do is have to repay 50 quid for every single game that I currently own now, especially those that they gave me for free every month.
Oh, you mean sort of how Microsoft has their library going over?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I would like to see. If Sony weren't doing that, I think that could be a massive problem for them.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. Considering how silent they've been in regards to it, it's very interesting. Like I've already personally have always said that we'll get PS4 backwards compatibility, sure, but forget about the three. That's not happening.
No.
Maybe you'll get lucky to get two or one. But yeah, no, like you said, I also hope that at the very least that if you are doing full PS4 compatibility, then your digital stuff will go over because, like you say, the people who purchase the digital version of the PS5, which we'll get to, what's
Mm.
going to happen to their games, considering that they're not going to be able to put a disc in?
All of Sony's silence and like their explanations for all the different things that they're planning, we'll get to a little bit later. But just to put a pin on this, regarding GTA 5, hopefully if they introduce it into PlayStation 5, they at least add some new feature to make it refreshing. That's the only thing that I can ask for. Other than that, yeah, that's all I have to say.
No, that's totally fair. I mean, that's what they did with the PS4 version. They just kept adding new DLC to the online for free, which is great. But like you say, people are kind of fed up of like me personally. I'm fed up of playing on the same map for so long. Like I want a new map. I want to go somewhere new. I want to maybe even go to a different time period. I don't know. But obviously, we're likely to not hear a GTA 6 till like 2023 or something like that.
Oh God.
But moving on from Grand Theft Auto, and speaking of the PlayStation conference. That's right. The PlayStation conference did happen, and we've got some massive stuff to share in regards to the PlayStation 5. There was various amount of games shown. My good friend Oggy has a list of games which were shown. Take it away.
I mean, I haven't got all of them. These are the ones that I can remember off the top of my head.
Of course.
So the first few ones obviously were, well, at first what they did was they showed a montage of all the greatest hits for PS4, although they did omit a couple of them, which I was a bit surprised at. Then they showed us the GTA 5 footage and saying that this is now available free, which is an interesting move, of course. Then they moved on to the games and the gameplay that they revealed, which is shown on the PS5. So this is what the graphics for PS5 are going to look like for these games. Gran Turismo 5 was the first one. Then they did. Sorry, yeah, you're right. Gran Turismo 7 was shown. Thank you.
Do you have any opinion on that game?
I've never really played Gran Turismo. I haven't played any racing games since PlayStation 2.
Jeez.
Yeah, I'm not really a big racing fan, although I will say the game looks very pretty.
Yeah, it did look very gorgeous. I mean, we usually get a Gran Turismo every generation anyway, but it's nice to see the detail in towards the interior of the cars and whatnot.
Mm.
Obviously, I did notice during that gameplay that they didn't show the outside of the car, like in third person.
Oh, so you
Like
reckon
you,
it's only first person?
yeah, no, I mean the game I think will be third person, but I just kind of noticed that because it was in alpha,
Mm.
that they only showed first person stuff.
Yeah.
But continue, my friend.
I mean, from what I saw, it was very pretty. I haven't seen any previous generations of the Gran Turismo series, so I couldn't really comment on whether or not the graphics have improved. But from the leap from PS2 racing games to Gran Turismo on PS5, I could say it is very pretty. It looks very realistic. Um, then they went for a classic game, which was a surprise for us. We mentioned this earlier on when we mentioned Insomniac. Ratchet and Clank, the newest game for PS5, the title being Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Lots of people really enjoyed that trailer. Of course, I was one of them. My two mates who I watched the live stream with, we were really surprised and really, really enthused to see that. How did you feel about that?
I was really surprised and I really did enjoy it, but like you say, we'll definitely explore that right after this topic. So we'll put a pin in that, but if I'm going to give you first thoughts, very well done, Insomniac. That's all I'll say.
The next on the list was a indie game called Project Athia. I think I'm pronouncing that right. It's Athia.
Is it definitely an indie game though? Because it's from Square Enix, so I thought it was AAA.
It could be a AAA game. I'm not particularly sure. It was definitely something that came out of left field. I've never heard any mention of it at all. It could be a AAA. I could be completely wrong. Uh,
It looks like something like Dark Souls, doesn't it?
it, I got a lot of those vibes, especially the final image of that dragon in the final part of that scene. That definitely had Dark Souls vibes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, by the way, we're going to be saying Dark Souls quite a lot in this live stream. Then we move on to Stray, which was a game about being a cat in a cyberpunk-esque world where apparently there aren't any humans from the looks of it. We just see robots everywhere and a sign saying RIP humans, which is interesting to say the least.
Yeah, no, I was actually quite taken back by this because obviously it was a cinematic trailer, so we don't actually know what the game is like.
Oh, we have no idea.
But the concept had really won me over, like the fact that there are no humans, that there are robots in society, and apparently a cat. I don't know if you're playing as a cat, maybe you are, but I am looking forward to that in a weird way.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It has a lot of mystery behind it, and I'm very curious to see what they do with it.
Yeah, same.
Then they released the next one, which was called Returnal, which is the one where it's the woman going into the spaceship and flies up into space. She
That
lands.
was very alieny.
I made the comment to my friend Johnny's and Cameron saying that it looks like Alien Isolation 2. That's what I thought it was.
Yeah,
But
I
then
would agree with that.
I was unpleasantly surprised to be shown that it wasn't that. However, I am very excited for this game. This does look very promising.
No, I do agree. It does look very promising. It's from I'm not sure who it's from, but I know it's somebody from the PlayStation Studios, but it's like a smaller development team.
We don't know much about the game. Obviously, the title is very derivative. We don't know exactly what that could mean regarding the gameplay. However, one theory that, my friends had when we were watching it was that it looks like she was dying and then she'd wake up, sort of like in Live Die Repeat
Oh,
with Tom Cruise.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
We
That's
don't
actually
know.
quite interesting.
That could be one way they're going to approach it. We have no idea. We just have to just see what happens when it comes out.
I also got Dead Space vibes from it.
Dead Space vibes.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
No, I don't know. It just kind of felt a bit Dead Spacey. Like I don't know if it's got anything to do with the writer from Dead Space because I know he was working on some project for something.
Hmm.
Um, but I got like Dead Space kind of vibes for it as well.
Next on the list was a surprise, a big surprise. Sackboy: A Big Adventure. We
Oh,
When they were introducing the first part of the trailer, there was no indication it's going to be Sackboy because of the way they were framing it. And then you see it, and you're thinking, "Oh my god, it's happening! They're bringing it back."
no, I thought the trailer was very cute, and I've always got a soft spot for Little Big Planet and Sackboy in general.
Mm,
Obviously, he's now one of PlayStation's biggest mascots from the PlayStation 3 days.
absolutely.
Um, obviously, this is going to be a family game, but it still looks kind of fun, and I presume you'll probably be able to make your own levels. like you could with Little Big Planet.
Hopefully, what this does say is something very interesting about Sony, since they're bringing back such a prominent franchise. Perhaps we're going to get more games of the Little Big Planet franchise, or maybe even more sequels to this. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah, very good point. Very good point.
Following that, we had Destruction All Stars, which was the Demolition Derby game where you could customize your characters and your cars. And when your cars get destroyed, apparently you just run around this Demolition Derby with just cars everywhere.
I actually thought this looked excellent. Like, I'm actually generally really into it. Like, it's got almost like Twisted Metal vibes,
I was thinking
with,
the same thing.
but also kind of like weirdly Fortnite, even though I hate Fortnite. Like, I don't know if you get what I mean.
Yeah,
Um,
I do.
but like also at the same time, Rocket League vibes. Like, I generally think this could be a really fun game, especially when your car gets destroyed and you're running around and you can like blow up other people's cars if you latch on.
I think you've nailed exactly what I like about this. This game encapsulates the best parts of all of those popular franchises, even the ones that we may not necessarily like. For example,
Mm-hmm.
I particularly I'm not really fond of Fortnite from what I've seen and played. However, this does have a lot of Fortnite vibes from it, and that's not a bad thing because they've captured the fun part, the excitement part, the ridiculous and chaotic side of that game. So it's definitely a big thing to look forward to.
Yeah, I do agree. It's also like it seems kind of light-hearted, a good time with friends that you could have. Even maybe people start making their own clans again, from the good old Call of Duty days.
Oh, the return of phase.
Yeah, and stuff like that. And like, I could even see it actually, if the game was as good as we're thinking, you could even end up having its own tournament.
It could do. It could very much have its own tournament. We just have to see what the mechanics are for the game. Maybe they're even different modes of the game. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I'm very excited. It's very refreshing.
Mm. Next, there was Kenna. I think
Oh
that's how you
yeah.
pronounce it. It was the one that reminded me most of The Legend of Aang.
See, I got Rise of Skywalker vibes
Well,
because
yeah.
obviously you had the female sat on the rock with a bunch of like little weird alien pong things.
Mm. Um, Not gonna lie, I wasn't completely as thrilled for this game when I first saw it. I'm interested in it because there's not much about it. The only really interesting thing I found was the variation in weapons, and that was the girl has a staff that obviously is imbued with magic of some sort, and she can use that as a melee weapon, of course. But then at one point in the trailer, she transforms it into a sort of like a bow and arrow, sort of like synchronously. So it just like seems from one weapon to another. I like how there's variation in a single weapon that way. It's unique. We haven't seen something like that in a while. At least I haven't personally.
No, I mean it'll be interesting because it is a small indie game, so like you can't expect too much.
Mm. Uh, I don't remember many more after this apart from a couple. So there was Oddworld, which was the return of a PS1 title.
Hmm.
Apparently, the revamping of it, which is very interesting. They're going back as far as the classics. So well done, Sony, for looking that far in your library for material. Then, then they had obviously the big ones like Spider Man. There was Resident Evil 8, The Village. That was a big surprise. What did you think of that?
I was actually very surprised by that. At first, I thought we were getting a Silent Hills, and then it clicked me because I thought about the Resident Evil Biohazard intro
Mm.
for when they revealed that, and then it kind of hit me, and I went, "Oh my god, this is Resident Evil!" Like, and then obviously they did the whole logo style thing again, where they put the word "village" with the dots, and then it said eight.
Oh, and the
Um,
surprise of the werewolf. That was interesting.
That was very cool. But the funniest thing about that trailer was how the player gets shot, and then he's like, "Oh, I'm all okay," and you're just there like, "Wait, what?" But
Um,
no, that does look fun. It's good to see Capcom. It's Capcom, isn't it? Right?
I think it's Capcom, yeah.
It's good to them see them back again. Like they've since Seven and everything, they've been doing everything right. Because I've heard that Devil May Cry was quite good as well.
Mm.
The newest one of that. So it's interesting to see the rebirth of Capcom again. We'll see if obviously if it continues or not, but it's also, it says a lot when you think about how good Konami used to be and how everybody used to hate Capcom, and now it's kind of flipped.
Well, they've also gone back and remastered a bunch of their old classic Resident Evil, so Resident Evil 2 and 3. And
Hmm.
those have been apparently big successes because they've taken a lot of the good elements from 7, such as the storage management with utilities, the third person aspect, as well as the first person aspect in a few of them. It's very interesting to see them reincorporate what works in the newest ones and using them on old games. That's really interesting. But I'm not gonna lie, the reveal of the eighth game was exactly what was needed because we've waited long enough for a sequel to 7, and apparently, I need to find the article to send to you later after this. Um, it, there are rumors that people can see in this trailer that the protagonist from the seventh game, Ethan, and
Hmm.
Chris Redfield would both be protagonists of this eighth game, possibly even playable protagonists. So this might be a
Oh,
direct sequel to 7.
that's very interesting. That
Mm.
I did not know that. Okay, that's quite cool. But yeah, no, maybe it is a direct sequel. I wasn't expecting that, but
I wasn't expecting that at all, so I was really impressed with that. Um, then afterwards, they revealed a little bit later down the line the newest game from the people that created Bloodborne and the Dark Souls franchise, Demon Souls. That,
oh no.
that
See,
looks like
that's where you're wrong.
really?
Yes. So what actually happens is From Software made Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, etc.
Mm.
Um, but the people who are bringing Demon Souls back as a remaster are Sony's good old friend Bluepoint Games,
Oh, really?
who are usually always remastering games. They're a second party studio, so they're not first party. But I believe what's happening is because I think Dark Souls is a From Software game, but Demon Souls was published by Sony. So I think Sony own the right to Demon Souls, so they're just having that remastered from the Bluepoint Games.
Do you reckon this will impact the game?
No, I really like Bluepoint Games. I think they're really good when it comes to remasters.
That's good. That's good.
Like I
I
had
really
them on
enjoyed it.
point as remastering Jack and Daxter if we ever got that, but that didn't happen. So
Uh, and then obviously the last one I can think of, which is obviously a talking point for later, Horizon 2, the final
yes,
reveal, which is a very welcome surprise.
yes, it is. But we'll get more onto that later on. But yeah, as you say, that seems like the main sort of stuff. I know we probably missed a few couple of games in there.
Apologies for those
Um,
who are fan of those other ones. We will talk about them another time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But like you say, but that being said, let's get deeper into this event. What did you think about it overall?
I love the reveal. I mean, the live stream was very long. I think it would clocked out at 2 hours and 15 minutes. Please
Oh
don't.
wow. Okay.
I don't quote me on that. I know it was a very long live stream. My friends and I took. We made a bet about how many transitions that they were going to do of the
Oh, the
PlayStation.
buttons.
Yeah, and it exceeded our expectations. We kept a tally. It was over 15, which was ridiculous.
Wow.
Not to mention, the graphics for those transitions were insane. And we were thinking, if they've put so much money into the transitions, then this console has to be something special. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Very good point. It was really well presented.
mm, what did you think of the parts that you saw?
Um, I was actually really impressed by the conference, considering the sort of like times we're in with the pandemic and all.
Mm,
I thought this came across very professional, really well done, really well lit, presented very well. The presentation was a lot better than Inside Xbox. Now, I know that's not the official Xbox announcement, but it does make the Inside Xbox announcement just look like a Zoom call, which it was pretty bad. But no, I was really impressed with the conference itself. It was really well done. Obviously, in an ideal world, we would have had a crowd and it would have been live on stage. That's not the world we're living in right now. But overall, very impressed. I'd give it a 9 out of 10.
mm.
Um, there were a few little fumblings in there with Grand Theft Auto, obviously, and various other things that we just didn't see. But overall, very positive. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the overall presentation of the event and whatnot. But that being said, moving slightly deeper into the games, the first game that was revealed like the first big game, was that Insomniac have been working on Spider-Man Miles Morales. Now, this game we originally thought was a full game, and it came as a big of a surprise because we were expecting Spider-Man 2,
Mm.
but instead we've got this Miles game. And now it turns out the Miles game will actually be a standalone game, but will kind of also form like a DLC. So it's very similar to Lost Legacy from the Uncharted series.
I prefer to think of it as sort of like the whistleblower to Outlast.
There, yeah. But what do you think of seeing Miles Morales' Spider-Man spin-off adventure game?
I think it's going to be very popular. I mean, Miles Morales is a very popular Marvel figure with Spider-Man. Spider-Man PS4 was a fantastic game, and we definitely need to see more of Peter with Spider-Man 2, especially since his story is definitely not finished. It's nowhere near finished. However, with that tease of Miles Morales in the game, it was exactly what was needed to launch this game. So I think this is a very good move for that franchise.
I mean, yeah, I do think it's a good move. Did you also notice how the original Spider-Man game is sort of set around Halloween, and this is sort of set around winter?
I did not notice that.
Um,
That's a very good thing to notice.
but yeah, no. So my assumption from that was, my friend was saying that he assumed maybe Peter and Mary Jane go on like a vacation somewhere, and then Miles is kind of set to look after the city for a bit.
Mm,
Which kind of makes sense, I guess, because obviously the game ends on a big cliffhanger from the first one.
yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how this ties in and whereabouts and the story it ties in,
Well,
because like it's still set in New York, it's still using everything from the previous game, and it won't be like a full-fledged PlayStation 5 game.
mm. Well, the thing is, there's no guarantee that it could be the same world. From what we know of Marvel, Marvel in particular, in terms of its movies, they like to do things in a very long-term viewpoint. They like playing the long game, and we don't know if that translates to the video games yet. They very rarely touch these video games in the same way they touch the cinematic universe. If they were to do the cinematic universe format for the games, we could see this Miles Morales as a completely separate world in which Miles Morales is already established, and they could even take the route of Spider-Man into Spider-Verse in terms of games, which obviously would be a very welcome experience for gamers and those who are fans of Spider-Man, especially Miles Morales. But again, we don't know enough about this game to make that sort of judgment yet. It could be very well just Peter Parker's gone on holiday and this is Miles Morales taking over for the time being. Like literally, we know nothing about this game so far. We don't even know who the main villain is because the trailer has been so um, enigmatic, if you could say that. All we know is that Miles Morales is going to get into a lot of combat. That's all. That's all we can say.
No, I mean you're right. My only thing with that is that obviously we don't know what sort of deal comes into it because obviously Sony own the rights to Spider-Man in the movies.
Absolutely.
Does that mean they own the gaming rights as well to the character or not? Because obviously Spider-Man and the Square Enix upcoming Avengers game, he won't be in that.
No.
So does that mean then Sony has the gaming rights as well? Because don't forget there were those disagreements with the original Spider-Man upcoming Tom Holland movies. So personally, with those disagreements, and obviously they've now come to an agreement,
Mm.
I would have asked for the gaming rights to Spider-Man. But obviously, we don't know what happened in those talks. We don't know what this game will be like. All we know is that Sony have Spider-Man rights. Their exclusive Spider-Man game did really well. They're doing another one, and we'll probably have many more down the line. But we'll see if this will interact with the other Marvel characters or in any way like that. Personally, I can't see that happening, just because I think the whole film rights thing will come into it.
Mm.
But it will be very interesting. And obviously, Square Enix does have their Avengers game, which is coming out later this year, which in itself will be something. Uh, but yeah. But moving on from Spider Man and still talking to Insomniac about Insomniac, not talking to Insomniac, I've got no connections. Um, but speaking of Insomniac, they did come up with another game, which was that Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart was revealed. Now, this is very interesting. To me, it came as quite a surprise because I wasn't expecting Spider-Man and Ratchet and Clank at the same time.
Mm.
What did you make of it?
I think it's very interesting that they're putting out two games. This implies that they've been focusing their efforts. Well, if they've finished both products and they're ready to release it, clearly one of them has been in the works for a while. So one of them is really well planned. Now, Miles Morales, Spider-Man, we know it's going to be of the same franchise as the Spider-Man PlayStation 4, which came out in 2018. So this game is relatively young. Speaking, which obviously leads to everyone thinking that it's not going to be a full game. So it could be the case that Miles Morales, when you play it, it's not going to be a full experience. It might be a relatively short game. But from what we can see in terms of Ratchet and Clank, in terms of what they showed in the trailer and the gameplay that we've seen, clearly there's a lot more going on in that game than the Miles Morales. Which, take from it what you will, we'll just have to see how it pans out. Maybe we're all wrong, and maybe they've surprised us and said, "Oh look, here are two well fleshed out, amazing games.
I
Enjoy."
mean, we already know that the Miles game isn't a massive game in itself because, like I was saying, it's like Lost Legacy.
Yeah.
So it'll most likely be 6 to 7 hours long, which in itself is still quite decent. But like, it won't be a full fledged game. While Ratchet and Clank is a full fledged game, and it looks like it was completely like made for the PS5. If that
Mm,
makes sense, because I felt like the Miles game looked like something which was meant to come out on PS4 being shifted over.
mm.
But speaking of Ratchet and Clank, I'm actually really impressed. Like, I wasn't expecting much, but the whole being able to like fly through different worlds, I think that looks fantastic.
I agree entirely. Now, Ratchet and Clank obviously is a very well established franchise, and I think Insomniac have done the perfect move with this. It's in fact this is something that Rocksteady can look at. Is it Rocksteady? Sorry, Rockstar. Is it Rockstar?
Mm-hmm.
Jeez. Basically,
GTA, Rockstar.
Rockstar GTA franchise should definitely learn from Insomniac. They're releasing a new title from a franchise that's already had plenty of installments. Except what makes this stand out is clearly there's something different about it, and that is the dimension hopping, the reality jumping, whatever you want to call it, the ability to move through space relatively quickly, and the fact that there is apparently multiple iterations of our favorite characters, like a female version of Ratchet.
I actually completely forgot about that. Good point.
We don't know. Apparently, this game could have like parallel versions of every character. We have no idea. Maybe the final boss is just an evil version of Clank. Who knows? We just need to see how this goes. And I think that's exactly what Insomniac have done well. They've taken a good idea and said, "Hey, how do we make this refreshing? Oh, I know. Let's throw in something completely ridiculous but works within the context of the game."
Yeah, I do agree. It's very refreshing. It's very interesting how the reality jumping to different planets is going to work out, especially with the multiverse characters appearing. And like, it also looked really good for loading screens. Like, I know they were saying the PS5 is going to have faster loading and everything like that.
Mm.
Like, the loading screens were still there. Let's be honest, when you were jumping through different worlds, but they were a lot quicker, a lot shorter, and it was breathtaking to see, I would say, to quote
Right.
Keanu. Uh, but yeah, no, I mean, I'm very excited for that, and it looks like it's likely to be a launch title.
I would be surprised if it is a launch title. They definitely should make it if it's going to be as good as we think it's going to be.
Did you miss Knack 3? Is that
Pardon?
something you wanted?
Pardon?
Did you want a Knack 3? Was that something you were looking forward to?
Uh, really, it was not at the top of my list. I want, I wanted a Bloodborne too.
That's fair, yeah. Bloodborne is a good shout. Like, I was obviously joking about Knack. We all love Knack, really. Uh, but moving on to the next one that we saw on there was a big one that I said would definitely be there, and I've been saying it since the first game, that we would definitely get Horizon 2 at the PlayStation 5 conference. And we did. It's called Horizon 2 Forbidden West. It follows Aloy's journey as she goes westward in America. And apparently, in the trailer, we saw various different mechanical dinosaur robots, whatever you want to call them. We saw turtles. We saw other pterodactyls, which look slightly different. We saw crocodiles again. We saw mammoths. I presume they're elephants, but they look like mammoths to me. But no, this looked very interesting. Again, this was not a gameplay trailer, unlike the Ratchet and Clank one, which again was very cool. It was a cinematic. what did you make of seeing Horizon at the conference?
Uh, Not a surprise, although I was surprised they weren't showing any gameplay. Uh, like at the beginning of, sorry to slightly digress here, but at the beginning of the live stream when they were showing Gran Turismo, initially it was purely cinematics, and my heart sank because I thought, God damn, is this live stream just going to be purely cinematics? Because I don't want that. I want to see gameplay. But then obviously each individual trailer showed their piece. They had their own gameplay for whichever the games they wanted to show gameplay. I was surprised that Horizon didn't show gameplay, but I was surprised that, but I was happy with what we got.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it was kind of surprising to see no gameplay because I was saying that I think it would be a launch title, but obviously it's not. But I presume it's coming first year in, but we didn't get a release date. But no, that did surprise me. But I am happy to see that Aloy's back, and we're definitely getting a sequel for this because I've been backing Guerrilla for a while now because everybody always knew them as just the Killzone developer. And it's nice that when they made Horizon that they showed the world what they can do, and it was a great game and it had a great story. The world was interesting. It was a brilliant concept, so it's fantastic to see them back. And I think I'm not 100%, but I think Jim Ryan, who's now the CEO of PlayStation, I think he was the CEO of Gorilla, so
Oh,
that doesn't surprise me. He showed their game last.
well, fair enough. But one thing I can say is they've definitely taken cues from Lord of the Rings. How do we make something that's already good better? Introduce war elephants. My God, when I saw them, I had goosebumps. I was like, yes, tell me we get to ride those things. Tell me we get to take them down. I just want to see more of the war elephants.
Oh, the beautiful war mammoths. All right. But no, I'm really excited for that game. Like, I really like that franchise, and I'm really excited to see where it goes. And now we come to the final part of the gaming section and the PlayStation event. That's right. The PlayStation 5 was finally revealed, and it looks nothing like we were expecting. It looks very futuristic. It looks like something out of Detroit. It looks like something from the year 2077. Uh, it looks completely different. And the twist, there's a disc and a digital version. What did you make of this, my good friend?
A very good choice for Sony. I heard from a lot of good friends of mine that they wanted both versions. So there's very clearly a market out there. They've established this with PlayStation 4, with the digital market, where you can buy games online and you don't have to you don't have to buy the disc, which is an excellent thing if you don't want to take up space. And obviously they've made such a market for it that obviously there's now going to be a demand for it. So they've made the perfect move to introduce both versions. So I'm very impressed with Sony, and we should have seen this coming. Realistically, we should have thought about it. PlayStation 5, we should have been like day one. This is going to be this. There's going to be two versions, but hey, they surprised us with a curveball.
I mean, yeah, it's a good point with the fact that we shouldn't really be surprised considering that this is sort of where the industry seems to be pushing itself.
Hmm.
Now, like, personally, I don't like that, but, like, because it just opens up too many DRM issues. You don't physically own anything, it's up in the cloud.
You're just
Whenever
like
they take that
don't
down,
worry about it.
you don't own anything, down with Skynet, all that crap. Um, but no, like, it's not really surprising considering there are two different consoles now. Now, the issue is obviously with the disc, it's most likely to be more expensive because it's got the disc drive in it and whatnot. But and the digital being cheaper because it doesn't have the drive. However, I think in the long run, it's cheaper to buy disc, considering that if you buy digital, you're now essentially owned by Sony because whatever goes through the store, you have to buy to physically play. Like
Jesus,
you
is such
can't,
a cynical view.
yeah, like you can't go on eBay and buy a game because obviously it's digital. Like you can't physically go do that. You can't like take your game and take it to your friend's house to play because it's all digital. And that for me is something that I will always be against when it comes to digital. I've always been all about physical. It's the same with like books. Like I'd rather own a physical book than an ebook, you know? So it's mine. I own it. I can do whatever I want with it. If I want to hump it, I'll hump it. If if I want to give it to James down the road, I'll give it to James down the road. If I want to sell it, I'll sell it. You know what I mean? I don't actually physically like hump any video games. Keep that in mind. But you get the point I'm trying to make, right?
In a way, yes.
I put it weirdly, but but no, like I said, I'm very excited, and it's great to see that for people who just want to buy digital, there's a market for you right there. It is interesting to see though. Will Microsoft do the same thing? Do you reckon?
Do you think they have time to make the same thing?
I mean, it was rumored they were working on two consoles, so I don't know really if that's actually true or not.
Well, from what we've seen of the Xbox, it looks like it was just one console with like the whole disc drive thing. If they suddenly announce we're going to have a digital version, then very clearly everyone's going to assume that they copied Sony, Sony is very clever for waiting for this right moment to release the details for it. Like, okay, suddenly here's a digital console, so now everyone knows Sony was first to do it.
No, I mean, yeah, it's a fair point. Obviously, it'll be fresher into people's minds because they've gone first and everything.
Mm.
But no, like you say, I think that we'll definitely see Microsoft do a digital version. I don't
Eventually.
know if it'll be at launch. It could be later down the line. But if I was a betting man, I would say they do have a digital version already made and ready to go.
Oh, it's worth mentioning that obviously the digital is amazing for those who want to go in that direction. Like it's a market space for you. If you don't want disc space, you can go for digital. However, going digital does have a lot more like other problems, and not just because now you're owned by Sony. If you want to put it that way,
Yeah.
there are other problems in that. From what we understand of this console, it's going to be reverse compatible, so you can go back to PlayStation 4 games and play them. However, if you go digital, you don't have the opportunity to do that with PlayStation 4 discs.
Yeah, that's the thing. We don't know if that's going to be something that's going to
We don't
be
know
allowed.
if there is the option to do that with discs for the PlayStation. The PlayStation 5. Like what do you want to call it? Analog. The like the sort of analog console where you can put like disc drives in. If that was the case where you can put PlayStation 4 discs in there, then that's amazing for them. But for the digital, then that potentially limits them because that means they can only play the digital versions of those transferred PS4 games.
Yeah, exactly. Like, unless you've bought your games, like, let's say, digitally on the PS4, it's going to come up with that issue of how are you going to tackle the fact that some people might own games on disc but now have gone digital, like you said. So that in itself will be very interesting to see what they do with that.
It's worth
Um,
consideration. That's all I'm saying.
no, exactly. Now, I've got a question for you. Two big questions. Number one, what will you buy, disc or digital?
I'm going disc, 100%.
Good man. I am also going disc, my friend. There's just way too many. Like, I know it's going to be more expensive, but I would rather have the option to go out and buy a second-hand game if I want, rather than be tied to the store all the time, which is far more expensive, by the way. Let's be honest.
Mm.
Yeah, so that's why I'll be going digital. I'm happy to pay the extra money for it in order to get what I want physically. So that'll be very exciting. I presume you feel exactly the same.
Um, yeah, in a way. I mean, that's not my central focus. The central focus is, like I said, if you're able to transfer PS4 games through disc, I like to have the option because most of my favorite games are on disc, and I also enjoy watching movies from my PlayStation. And if I go digital, then I'm only limited to what I can find online. That's the problem.
That's a good point. Actually, I didn't think about that. The whole Blu-ray thing.
Especially since they've announced that it's going to be 4K Ultra HD, which is very exciting. But that means you can only access things online that are already available, or you have to purchase things or rent things online, which is a whole different ballpark.
Yeah, you've made a really good point actually, because some people buy the PlayStation to use as a DVD player as well as a console gaming machine. So that's a really good point because I know a lot of people did that with the PS3 because it was the cheapest Blu-ray player out there.
That's what I
So
did.
yeah, so they bought the console because they were like, well, it's cheaper and I can play games on it. But no, and my final question: what do you think the price will be for the PlayStation 5 disc and digital?
So straight off the bat, I reckon the digital's obviously going to be cheaper because there's going to be less component parts and less like requirements on the system itself.
Hmm.
How much cheaper though? I'd say maybe 50 quid
Okay.
cheaper. I don't expect them to say like, oh, digital's like £100 cheaper. I don't expect that at all.
So, what? Give me a price.
That's the thing, because we haven't even mentioned the other thing that comes with these consoles. These consoles, from the looks of this reveal trailer, it's going to be not just a single console, it's going to be a pack system. So if you buy a console, you're going to have the 3D headphones, you're going to have the HD camera, the charging port, the controllers. You're going to have all these accessories that come with it, which is fantastic because it's all in one bundle. But that obviously means the pricing will go up. So
See, I thought they would do bundles and separate at the same time because I can see a lot of people not wanting the accessories.
I can see that too, but from the way they presented it in the live stream, the only thing that I can conclusively say is that they're doing bundles.
Okay, well, see, I took away a different thing from that. That's
Really?
interesting. Yeah, I thought it more as they were just showing off accessories.
Oh,
Yeah, because the way I looked at it was, all right, so the consoles will come separately, and then this is the bunch of stuff you can buy with it if you want. Sort of how they did it with the PS4.
well, what about the PSVR? Even though they haven't made the PS5 version, they have announced they're definitely making a PSVR for the 5.
I mean, obviously, that'll come down later down the line, won't it? But
Mm.
it's a bit gimmicky, if I'm honest. Uh, like, unless it looks like Sword Art Online, I'm not interested.
You say
Like,
that like it's a good thing.
huh?
You say that like it's a good thing.
It's not a good, it's not a great anime, but at least it's kind of cool to be in that world, you know.
No,
But
okay.
no,
Regarding
um,
price, I reckon, if I'm going to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if they announced the disc version to be between £500 to £600. I wouldn't be surprised.
oof, okay.
And like obviously the digital being obviously a little bit cheaper. However, if they said it's going to be £500 for the disc, then I'll be like, oh, okay, that's fair.
How much would you say for the digital then? 450?
450. That's assuming that it's a bundle package. If it's like a console with controller only, then I imagine it's going to be significantly cheaper.
Okay, so if you were saying console with controller only for both of them, how much would you say then?
For disc, I'd say like maybe 50. No, okay, why not? I'd say £50 cheaper. So like the disc would be 450, and then the digital would be like 400.
Okay,
How about yourself?
that's
What do you think?
okay. All right, that's a fair point. I think that the digital will be cheaper. I think it's going to be a lot cheaper than £400. I expect the digital to be 350.
350.
Yes, I'm going 350, 380. That's what I'm going for. My reasoning for that is because they'll make most of their money off of the store. So that's why I think they'll make it cheaper. So then people will be like, oh my God, it's cheaper. So I'll buy it. So then a bunch of people will go out and buy it and then be like, oh my God, no. Now I've got to go out and buy a game off the store for £55 rather than going off and buying it for 40.
Oh, so you think they're going Bethesda Fallout 77 tactics with like make the game cheap but make them go to the Atom shop?
Basically, yeah. So I'm sort of going off of what I know off the store. I know the store has sales, but let's be honest, when a new game releases on the store, it's 54 quid compared to 45 if you buy it in physical disc. That's why I'm saying I think the console will be cheaper for 380, but because people have bought the digital, they've essentially Sony knows they can be like, well, they can't buy any games any other way than off our store. So you're going to make a bunch of money off the store that way. That's my assumption.
No, I can definitely see them taking that route if they were to go that route. However,
So
that sort of tactic would be very detrimental to their brand, though, because if they then get associated, oh, PS5, you made us wait all this time, showed us all these great things, would then make this full, basically like loot crate tactic. And that's going to be like really detrimental to their brand. So I imagine if they're going to take that route, they're going to do it cautiously.
yeah, well, fair. For the disc, I would be very annoyed if it's over £500. Like very, very angry. Let's say that much. Um, so
Well, if
if
it's
I,
console only, the other that, then I can like agree with you definitely.
that's what I mean. Just console only. I'm not saying with the accessories for both. I mean without the accessories. Um, if I was a betting man, I want it personally to be no more than 450. 480 is really pushing it, but I'm going to go with 450 for the console. This 450.
Well, we'll
That's
just
what.
have to see what it is. We still haven't got an official release date, I don't think.
Here's the thing, though. I'll throw a curveball at you.
Oh, great.
Digital, right? We both went cheaper, which is what it'll essentially be, right? But what if the digital has a bigger hard drive?
Oh, I see what you mean now. That would be that would be a worthy compensation. So, like, if you were to scrap the idea of you can't buy your own games, you can't replay the old PlayStation 4 games, you can't get any DVDs or watch it like of your own free volition, you have to go through our system, then a worthy compensation and trade-off would definitely be a much larger hard drive. But the hard drive needs to be substantial. It can't be just like, oh look, it's double the hard drive. No, it has to be much more than that to compensate for all you're missing out on.
Are you saying 2 terabytes?
I'd say more than that if it was possible.
Really?
If it was possible, then yeah, I'd say way more than that.
Now, okay. Speaking with that bigger hard drive and all, would you say then it would be more expensive than the disc?
Ooh, I don't think it would though, because you're just applying a storage unit to it. I
True.
mean, if you were really complaining about the storage unit being so expensive, then need I remind that you can always just buy yourself an external hard drive and then attach it to your PlayStation, just like as an attachment. That
That's
is
also very true.
just an option. But if they were to do that for the digital as its standalone, they shouldn't make it too expensive just as an extension.
Because the way I was looking at it is that you can still play your digital games if you've got the digital license via your CDs, etc.,
Yeah,
and all that and everything. It'll be the exact same as the disc, but it'll just have a bigger hard drive. So that's why I was assuming that if they did it that way, then the digital would actually be more expensive than the disc.
I can definitely see that.
But yeah, it was just something I thought I'd throw out there because it could very much be that digital has a bigger storage.
On the flip side, what? How about I throw you a curveball? What if they announced that the disc version was reverse compatible with PlayStation 3 as well?
Oh, mate, that I mean, there's no way that's going to happen. There's just no way because the
I,
architecture is so different. But I presume you're saying in a hypothetical world.
I mean, there's no such thing as impossible. At the very least, we can say it is very, very unlikely that's going to happen. As you said, the architecture is so different. But if
Yeah,
they were able to work out a way that both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 3 were both compatible with reverse compatible with PS5, and that the digital people would be missing out on this, at least for discs, then that would obviously be a massive blow to the digital console.
then I think it would have to be 500.
Mm.
Like I still wouldn't pay more than 500 for a console.
I'm not talking about pricing wise. I'm referring to like what the trade off would be for digital. Because if the digital can't
Mm.
have access to the disc version of PS3 games as well as PS4.
That's a good point because I presume in that case the digital will be worse off because obviously it's more likely you can play digital PS3 games.
Yeah,
Actually, no, good. Yeah,
the library would be huge though if you think about it. PS4,
yeah,
PS3, and upcoming PS5 games. That library would be massive.
it would. It would. No, you're not wrong. But it'll be interesting to see because obviously they didn't release a price.
No,
We presume they're waiting for Microsoft to go first, uh,
that's the
so
thing.
they can undercut them. I presume.
But
Um,
there's so many things that Sony has not revealed about this console. Not just the obviously the pricing and what you can do with it, but obviously the actual desktop.
mhm.
In the live stream, they didn't even show what the desktop's going to look like or what the
See, they
capabilities were.
gave a little glimpse at the UI.
Yeah, I mean a tiny glimpse, but that's not
Like,
enough.
yeah, it was just before Asteroid Playroom. There was like a split, maybe like 10 seconds that you saw a little glimpse at the UI, and then that was about it. Because there were rumors going around that the UI will be able to like give you hints in regards to like walkthroughs and stuff if you're really struggling.
Mm. And
But
these are the things that we need to know. What will the desktop be for the PlayStation 5 like? How seamless will it be? Will they have taken the flaws of the PS4 and the PS3 and taken that into consideration? That sort of thing.
exactly, exactly. But no, we'll have to see, won't we? But otherwise, that's about everything for this week's episode. Shout out against to Alex Winfield. I hope he's having a great time wherever he is. And I hope you enjoyed yourself, Oggy.
Absolutely.
Fantastic stuff. Me too. This was great fun. I hope you guys all enjoyed it as well. If you did, obviously, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and all that jazz. Leave a comment if you really want. All that YouTube crap. And otherwise, hopefully, we'll see you potentially next week with some more information.
Thank you for having me.
No worries, Oggy. Thank you. And if you have any social media, etc., you can shout that out now.
Just send me a raven if you want to speak to me.
Fantastic. There you are. Have fun, folks, and keep safe.